Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Today on Ciao Italia, swimming with the fish. Today I want to make for you a Sicilian recipe. I know that you've had caponata. You must have had caponata, and the word doesn't have a real translation to it. I think of caponata as Sicily on a plate because it uses indigenous ingredients that come from Sicily, like eggplant, like zucchini. Here we have already chopped up red bell peppers. We've got some onions. And the trick to making a good caponata, which all I can say can be described as a Sicilian sour and sweet salad, is that it is absolutely delicious and it is a classic from Sicily. So how does it go together? Well, let's start with the eggplant. So you want to get yourself some nice looking eggplant. I always close my eyes when I see eggplant that's starting to get a little bit old looking because I know that it'll be seedy. So you want to cut it up because we're going to dice this. You want it in small pieces. So let me get, it's a little slippery there. So you cut up your eggplant. I'm leaving the skin on. It's very classic when you make a caponata. And then you just want to cross-cut them so that they're somewhat diced. Now the trick to making a really good caponata, and I'm telling you that there are many, many versions of this recipe. You could walk throughout Sicily knocking on doors in Palermo and they'll tell you this is the way I make caponata. Or you could go somewhere else, Marsala, and they'll say, no, this is the way you make caponata. The point is that whatever you do, you have to cook every vegetable separately. And why are you doing that? So the vegetable retains its flavor. So you want 2 small eggplants. This is a large eggplant, so I'm going to use half of that. And that's the key. You have to cook each vegetable rather, separately so that it retains its integrity and its flavor. So here we have 2 zucchini. And we're just going to do the same thing to those. So this may take a little while to do because you have to cook each vegetable separately, but believe me, the end result is wonderful. So caponata can be served by itself as a salad, or we're going to serve it today with tuna, which is tonno, another wonderful indigenous product that comes from Sicilian water. So now we're going to get some oil in a pan. So we have some olive oil in our saute pan, and I'm going to add the zucchini. And the other reason that you cook these separately, besides wanting to retain the individual characteristic flavor of the vegetables, is that all of these vegetables are going to cook at different rates because of their thickness or their texture. So the zucchini are going in first. If you happen to miss and get a piece of the eggplant in there, don't worry about it. So there's our zucchini. And we want to cook this until it softens. You can see that the zucchini is taking on a little color now, so that's what we want. We want it to get soft, but we don't want it to be mushy. So when it starts to brown a little bit, well then we can take it out into a bowl. And we're going to put the next vegetable in, which will be our eggplant, melanzane. I do this with a slotted spoon so I can keep the oil in the pan. I may have to add more oil because the eggplant will be absorbing some of it, but in general, the oil should stay behind. So there's the eggplant. Now, there's the zucchini. Now we're going to add the eggplant. So that goes in. And we want to do the same thing to this. We want this to take on a little color, be softer, but not mushy. And we're going to give this some salt and pepper. So each one of these vegetables, this is the classic way to do caponata, is to cook each one of these separately. So there's pepper. We're going to need a little more olive oil for this. As you can see, that just took it right out of the pan. So a little olive oil, a little salt. And we're going to let that go until we have something that is a little bit more browned looking. So I'm going to put a cover on that. Let's check the melanzane, see how it's doing. All right, so you see how it has shrunk down, and now we can add that to the zucchini. And the next thing we're going to cook are the onions. So we have to add a little bit more olive oil to the pan here. And now the onions go in. All right, we want to soften those onions just to take on a little color. And you know, this dish is really an Arabic dish. This is a dish coming from northern Africa. And the Sicilians adopted a lot of the North African cooking with their spices and the method of cooking. So if you go to Sicily today, you really want to visit the outdoor markets like the Ballarò or the Capo, two great markets near Palermo. And you will see everything out in big bins. All of the spices are out. They're talking in Sicilian dialect. They're sing-songing, wanting you to come by and buy things from them. There'll be capers, there'll be spices, there'll be swordfish. There'll be everything you could possibly think of that the Sicilians grow. Tomatoes, eggplants, all of that having come from foreign influence. So here we are, and the onions are cooking down nicely. I did get a few specks of red pepper in there, but hey, I'm only human. So now we can take that out. And we're building the flavors now. So the last thing we have to put in here is the red pepper, sweet red pepper. So here's our red pepper. That all goes in. I'll tell you a little secret about caponata. I told you earlier that depending on who you ask, you will get a different version of this recipe from everyone. One of the ways I love to make this, in doing a lot of the research about Sicilian cooking, is to add something that the Spaniards brought to Sicily. Because you know, Sicily was that island that was invaded with so many different cultures. That's why you can't say that there's a real Sicilian cuisine. There isn't. There's a cuisine that's based on many, many cultures. But one of the things that the Spaniards brought to Sicily that I often use in caponata is cocoa. That's right, cocoa. Cocoa really finishes off a caponata. So there are many, many ways to do it. So now we want these peppers to cook down. And when they do, we'll be ready for the second part of this dish. Yes, they're soft. They get added to the bowl. So now that they've all been cooked individually, we still have to do something to give them more flavor. I'm going to lower that heat. So we've got zucchini, we've got eggplant, we've got peppers, we've got onions. Gorgeous. As someone said, Italian food is beautiful. So what are we going to do? Well, we cannot make a caponata without some anchovies. So here we have 2 anchovies in oil. You can buy that in your grocery store. You could get anchovies in salt if you wanted to, but if you did that, then you would have to really rinse the anchovies off. But these are in oil, and I like to buy the imported ones, so look for something that is pretty authentic. So 2 anchovies go right there, and with that, here's another product from Sicily, used a lot of times in lots of recipes, not just caponata, but capers. And capers are those little unopened flower buds that grow in crags and rocks in the Mediterranean. They have a sour, puckery taste, but they're perfect in this dish. So I'm going to add them right here with the anchovies. And then we just want to give them a coarse chop, because now what we're going to do is we're going to put this in some olive oil. And this is what's going to help flavor this. I'll give it a coarse chop because the anchovies are really going to melt down in the olive oil. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Okay, that's good enough. It smells great. So now this goes in the oil. Now we want just a little olive oil in the pan again, and we're going to add this combination of the anchovies and the capers, and really press on it with your spoon. You really want that to kind of melt down right into the oil. I wish you were here to smell this. Okay, that's looking good. Now that we've got that, we're going to lower the heat really down low. Take all of our vegetables and put them right back in here. And then move that around so that you can get all of this coated with the anchovy. Doesn't that look beautiful? And this is going to be the base. This is going to be the warm salad on which we are going to top some pretty nifty tuna meatballs. So now I can take this out. And that's the caponata part. Now let's make the meatballs. So in this bowl, I have two hot potatoes, that is going to be a binder for the tuna meatballs. So when I cook potatoes, I never boil them. I just poke them and put them in the microwave. And on high power, they cook in very few minutes, because if you boil them, you're adding a lot more water to the potato, and then I would have to add a lot more breadcrumbs, so I don't want to do that. So get two potatoes mashed by hand. Don't do this in a food processor, because you'll just make the mashed potatoes gummy. All right, so that looks good. So now this is just like making a regular meatball, if you were making like a meatball at home. So we've got the potatoes. We want some pepper, a piacere, as the Italians say, to taste. Here's some salt. We're going to add some tuna. Now, I mean, we got to get serious here. This is real Italian tuna in olive oil. So that's how you want to buy it in the store, because these are fillets. It's not that it's all been flaked, you see. So I'm going to put this with the oil. This is like a 1.6 ounce jar of these Italian tuna fillets. Look how pretty they are. Beautiful. Perfect. So all you do here is just flake it up a little bit. You want that oil, so keep that oil. But you don't want to make this too flaky that it's lost its texture. See? Okay, then that can go right here. You add that to the potatoes. And then we want an egg as a binder. One egg goes in. And then we're going to need some garlic, aglio. So 2 cloves of garlic, fresh garlic, not garlic in a jar that's already chopped up, because that is really old garlic and it's going to make your dish taste terrible. So just chop up 2 cloves of garlic. If you don't like garlic, you could leave this out, but something will be missing in the flavor. So there's the garlic. And then we want capers. Again, remember, these are from the island of Pantelleria, off of Sicily, where the best capers come from. So, tablespoon or so of capers. If you want to chop them up a little bit, you can do that too. More anchovy. Chop that up. Adding extra flavor to this dish. And you see, Italian food is so it's so uncomplicated because it uses really good quality ingredients. And Sicilian food is just building flavor after flavor after flavor. Look at all the different flavors we got going on there. Now we need some flat leaf Italian parsley. Let me put this with the stems. The stems have great flavor. And so we want flat leaf Italian parsley, not curly parsley. Curly parsley, as I have said forever, has no flavor, but it looks pretty on a plate. Because when I'm chopping this, I can smell the oils in this parsley. So get it minced up. And that goes in. It's about 2 hefty tablespoons. So there's our mixture. Okay, now that we have that, we can mix this around a little bit. Okay? Gently. Don't disturb it too much. Just get everything gently mixed. The potato is the binder with the egg. And this is a great thing to serve as an antipasto for a party. You could serve these warm. You could serve them at room temperature. You could make them meatball size. You could make them marble size for a party. And just gently form them. Sicilian meatballs tend to be a little flatter than other meatballs. They're almost disc-like looking. So form them into something that's pretty compact. And then roll them in really good breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs you've made yourself from stale bread. And then you can just press them down a little bit, give them that little disc-like look. So we have some peanut oil heating up in a frying pan. You want to get that oil to 375 degrees Fahrenheit because it has to be hot enough to cook these tuna meatballs. But remember, everything here is already cooked, so all we really want to do is brown the breadcrumbs. So when the oil is hot, carefully load them in. And just let them cook until they brown on one side, then turn them over and brown them on the other side. So there they are. Now we can plate them with the caponatina. So look at how beautiful this looks, and it's been kind of marinating for a little while now, so now we can plate this. And I like to serve it right on a bed of the caponatina. So pretty, all of the different colors. And then once you have it on your dish, you can add the tuna meatballs right on top. Okay. A very classic dish from Sicily with all of the wonderful flavors of that island, which is also half my homeland. So there you have it. Tuna meatballs with caponatina. Tuna with couscous is something you'd find in western Sicily, like in Palermo and those areas. So couscous, this is it right here in a bowl here, say cooked, and here's what it looks like when it's not cooked. And all that is semolina and water that's made into a little pasta bead. That's all it is. And when couscous cooks, like a half a cup of raw couscous can give you 3 cups of cooked couscous. So this is a great salad to have. And it's very indicative of some of the other ingredients that come from Sicily. So here we have couscous, which originally came from North Africa. So to this, we're going to add some lemon zest, because if you've been in Sicily, you know that there are lemons everywhere. And lemons flavor a lot of dishes. I don't know if you watched the shows last year, but we actually did a cake made totally with the whole lemons, the way they do it in Sicily. So I'm adding about the zest of 3 lemons. So we've got lemon in there, and now you can start to think about this being very, very lemony flavored. And here we have the juice, a lot of juice, of 2 or 3 lemons. And you want to mix that around in the couscous. And then with this, we want some mint. So here we have some fresh mint. Let me move that out of the way. Because again, mint plays a big role in Sicilian foods. In the caponata that we just made, with artichokes, in sauces for fish and pasta. And you want to always use fresh herbs. Okay, there's our mint. And that goes right in there. And we're going to mix that around. And we're back to tuna, yes. So here we are. We've got those tuna fillets in olive oil, and you just want to flake that. Remember, we made those beautiful tuna meatballs. So just flake it. You're going to use the oil as well. Once it's flaked, this goes together so quickly. So if you're saying to yourself, what's for supper? I don't feel like cooking. And you had these ingredients in your pantry, you could have supper ready in no time. We've got the tuna, and now we want some shallot. Shallots in the onion family has a little milder flavor. So 1 large shallot, or if you want to use less, you can use less. And a little heat. We need a little heat. So some hot red pepper flakes to taste. Piacere, as they say in Italian. You gently mix this. And now we want some tomatoes. So here we have some tomatoes. In Sicily, these would be plum tomatoes, or they would be cherry tomatoes. Put some of those in. Mix that around. See how colorful this is? It's so pretty. And then, just because we're in a place where they grow some of the best pistachio nuts, and they would be from Bronte, Sicily. The pistachio nuts of Bronte are called the green gold of Sicily because their color is so vibrantly green. They actually have what's called a sagra, a festival of the nut, of the pistachio nut. So we're going to put some toasted pistachio nuts in there and give that a toss. And then just a little salt and pepper. And we are good to go. So, there you have it. 2 ways to use tonno. Today, I took you to Sicily for 2 classic dishes that you can make in your own kitchen. And we started with a classic that's called caponatina, a takeoff on caponata, which is a mixture of vegetables like zucchini and eggplant, onions and peppers that we cooked separately and then flavored with some anchovies and capers and set it aside until we made these delicious tuna meatballs. And now they're sitting on top of the caponatina. It's a great antipasto, or it can be a main meal. And then, if you want to try something else that's just a little bit unusual, why don't you make a couscous with tuna? There's very little cooking involved. All you have to do is boil up the couscous and then take those tuna fillets and mix them with some spices, some lemon juice, some lemon zest, some mint. Put it all in a bowl and eat it with some wonderful toasted bread in olive oil. And until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao!